in the midst of a huge transformation where our peers, communities, and workplaces are all really melding into one. Welcome to Reimagining Company Culture. My name is Christina Giordano, pronouns she, her, and hers, and I'm the Partnerships and Community Manager here at AllVoices. Today, I'm thrilled to welcome our next guest onto the show, Jen Paxton. She is the VP of People at Smile. Love that name. Thank you so much for being here, Jen. If you want to share a little bit about yourself, folks who are listening, including your pronouns, and when you were younger, do you remember how you answered the question, what do you want to be when you grow up?
Yes. Thank you so much, Christina, for having me on. So my name is Jen Paxton. My pronouns are she, her, hers as well. And I am the VP of People over at Smile. So Smile is an e-commerce loyalty platform. And so we help small and medium-sized businesses all over the world to set up loyalty programs and engage their shoppers in sales and community building within those specific merchants as well. The thing that is very unique about Smile is we are 63 employees in 18 countries.
Wow.
So from a global distribution and a kind of a global voice, we definitely have a lot of just unique perspectives and backgrounds that are incorporating into the product. And we, of course, are supporting a global merchant global merchant force as well. So hopefully it kind of ties kind of hand in hand there.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you for providing that context for folks. And I want to ask how you think your personal journey has really led you up until this point to be at Smile, and specifically shepherding along the people team as the vice president.
Yeah. So I realized I didn't answer your first question, by the way, of what I wanted to be when I grew up. So, but I can put it in here. So I was a singer when I first grew up. I thought I was going to be on Broadway. I went and did undergrad and grad school to, be an opera singer, do vocal performance. Like I've always been performing and in shows, and learned very early on that, I shouldn't say very early on, but learned later on in my career on the singing side that I wasn't going to be able to pay rent in Boston, which is where I live, to make that career work. And so I started working a full-time role on the recruiting side and really loved it. And that led me to working into startups and really loved the idea of being able to build something from scratch, have such an impact on people's lives and, where they wanted to go with their careers and help kind of foster that, culture and that kind of teamwork and collaboration. And so that kind of windy road that I am talking about led me to Smile and where I am their VP of People. And what I am really focused on doing is fostering that really just strong and inclusive culture where people feel that sense of belonging. And then also I'm trying to facilitate more, cross-team collaboration. The tricky part for us is we have people in, I think it's like 10 different time zones. So from an asynchronous and a synchronous communication, that's always a challenge. But and also, I think from a sense of belonging and kind of community side, because everyone is remote and on different sides, maybe of an ocean or different sides of a computer, you might not always feel kind of that sense of togetherness. So I'm trying to really approach that in just a really authentic and candid and comforting way.
Yeah, absolutely. Creating those meaningful connections across different time zones, async work, definitely something that so many folks are talking about right now, and creating a sense of belonging at work is something that, it takes a lot. And I'm sure you're working on multiple different projects, and you mentioned collaboration with different teams. For folks who aren't familiar with the specific role of, VP of People, what would you say the North Star is, or the kind of number one goal is for someone in a role like this?
Yeah. So for me, it is really about kind of shepherding that culture. And what I mean by culture is really defining and help people to define how they're going to work together, how they're going to communicate together, how they're going to give each other feedback back and forth. So then I become more of a sounding board for managers. So if they need to deliver any kind of feedback, I also try to be that connective tissue within our exec team as well. So people will have specific projects that they're working on that integrate in with other projects within other departments. So I come in and talk a little bit about how does that affect all of our people and what communication are we going to have on that specifically. We can definitely get into this later. I'd love to, but from a transparency and a communication side, it's really important that companies get that right, because that fosters into how a company is perceived and how a culture is really is grown.
Yeah, absolutely. I definitely agree with you there. And one of the kind of things that you mentioned too is being a sounding board for managers, which is really important. And I think the role of managers has continued to change over time. Can you tell me about the ways that you kind of train and coach and resource new managers who are coming in from perhaps an individual contributor role and it's their first time being that kind of person for, a team?
Yeah, so I will preface by there are multiple ways to support managers. And so one of the first things I'll kind of talk through with them is how they like to be supported. Some people some newer managers, I don't have one-on-one meetings on the books. Like they're just kind of ad hocs that they can throw on the calendar. And what I will do is if I am hearing something or noticing something or read a cool article, I'll send it to them because they like to digest things in the written word, not in live one-on-one communications. And then in addition to that, then I have those one-on-one coaching sessions that are live with managers as well. And then I'm actually really big on peers. So like peer-to-peer collaboration and helping that way. So we are in the process, actually, I'm super excited. We're going to be in January doing a manager training, which is facilitated by a third party. And they're going to be walking them this manager cohort, which the execs will be in it as well, which I'm super excited about for our investment too. But walking through specific just topics that managers will come up against. And it could be new managers working on, hey, how do you even establish one-on-ones, to more sticky situations with, hey, this person isn't ready for a promotion. How do you keep coaching them and keep them engaged? Are there special projects or various other things you can do to keep them engaged? So that manager cohort training through that third party is going to be really great and hopefully very valuable to everyone on the team. And I'll still keep the one-on-one coaching sessions as well, but knowing that I am only one person, a mighty team of three right now at our tiny company, it's good to be able to facilitate those third-party connections too.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think for cohort-based learning as well, it's important to remember that you are not alone in this experience as a manager. There are other managers that you can kind of bounce ideas around with and really talk to. And having those one-on-one conversations is also really important as well. And something else that you said in terms of everybody learns differently, everybody receives feedback differently. So really asking those specific questions is important as well. We were talking earlier too around this idea of equity-driven leadership and what that looks like in practice. Can you share like one of the ways that you encourage this at Smile?
Yeah. So I think the first thing that we have been trying to kind of establish is more just talking through what is equity and really naming it. And defining kind of what we mean by equity. And then the other part that I think comes into play before you even get into any kind of trainings or sessions on that is actually recognizing your own biases that are going to creep in. And it's inevitable. Everyone has biases. So you want to be able to actually have those open and candid conversations around that. We've had some like monthly meetings so far where people have been able to express kind of thoughts and open up a little bit more candidly with their peers on that. And then in addition to that, from a all company, we've actually had an unconscious bias training so far since I've been here. And it was really amazing. It was by this facilitator named Monica Livingston. She has this talk on befriending the disruptor. And it was great because you got so many different takeaways and action items, but you also felt empowered because there are certain situations where it can be just completely, you freeze on those situations. And she had such a way of storytelling and talking through kind of her own personal journey that I think it helped me personally to understand like how I could navigate some of the situations that I have experienced as well. So I love the idea of having again, external people come in as well to lend their thoughts and their experiences to help shape kind of the team on the training side.
Yeah, absolutely. There are people whose whole body of work is around this. So really leveraging their subject matter expertise, also showing that you are investing in these kinds of resources is really important as well. And when we're talking about cultivating a sense of belonging, we're talking about, company culture and making sure people feel empowered to do their best work. And sometimes, that's hard to measure, but what are some qualitative or quantitative ways that you're measuring progress and kind of success there?
Yeah. So when I first got into Smile, we did have an engagement tool, which is a weekly pulse check that was set up. There were definitely, pros and cons to the tool that we're using right now. And I think from a reporting standpoint, it was really easy to see, how we were doing when I got here, how we were doing after a few weeks, after a few months. Even I went back and looked at some historical content as well from the analytics side to see what was our kind of average as a company as we started the tool and then as it went along. There were definitely telling kind of signs in the data of more tumultuous times at Smile. Smile's been around for 10 years and there's definitely been highs and lows in the business and you can see it in the data. The other part that I really liked in this particular pulse check was we do have employees that write in anonymous feedback, which I think is so crucial, where we can give a place for people to express all of their feedback. It could be joys, it could be frustrations, it could be problems that need solutions, where they can opt into it being anonymized or they can put their name in. There's usually a dialogue that goes on within that, so it is some prompt question that will be from the tool, an answer from the employee, and then a response. Before I got here, a lot of members of the leadership team were kind of taking them on piecemeal. I've kind of taken most of that responses on myself, but then also if there are specific ones that tie to a specific leader from either a coaching perspective or a, hey, like it'd be really great if you answered this because you have more context, then I'll loop that in. And then the other thing that we've done so far is actually an employee engagement survey as well. So we've actually had two different ones. One we just did on organizational energy. And so that talked more about kind of the motivations of the employee, where kind of the more processy gaps that we have right now. And also it broke it down into manager 360s as well. So I have some more specific manager takeaways from that. And then the other engagement survey we did was very, very focused. I, coming in, knew that we had some really great perks, but I wasn't sure from a usage standpoint or a support standpoint if it was going to actually be the best for every employee. So wanted to really focus in on the perks and recognition that we have going on right now and see how can we actually make that better, and are employees really using the perks we have, or like are there bottlenecks to the perks that we have right now too?
Absolutely. Employee kind of listening and team listening is really important, and setting up specific ways for people to do that is super important, because just like everybody has a different way of learning, everybody has a different comfortable way of just like raising their hand and giving that feedback as well. How do you see employee feedback management as an important tool to really building that culture of trust? And how do you see that manifesting at Smile, like overall at the company?
Yeah, I mean, I think that the thing I always think about when I'm sending out a survey is, number one, what is the goal of my survey, and like what am I looking to get back? But then the thing that the do and the don't here is that if you are going to ask for feedback, be prepared to get the feedback and then also act on it.
Yeah.
It's just been so eye-opening to me how many places like will ask for feedback, and it's like it goes into this like black hole where you never see it ever again. And that is definitely very challenging. And I mean, I have done that before where it's like it's still maybe a processy that's in the works that I just haven't really been able to fully hash out yet. And that's going to happen too, but I've been trying to communicate, hey, like we're working on this, like at least a status update on it. If it's not something that we've fully fleshed out. Yeah. I'll give an example if that's okay.
Yeah, absolutely.
Cool. So from that perks and recognition survey that we did, so we have a unique benefit to Smile that is an e-commerce credit. So since Smile works with lots of e-commerce merchants, we want to be able to give back to those merchants. And then, so what happens is the employee can spend $100 a month at a merchant site. Hopefully they're experiencing kind of that merchant's loyalty program, pros and cons, a little bit of dog fooding in that kind of sense, but also giving back to the merchant. And then what will happen is Smile employees will just upload a receipt to be reimbursed via payroll. We saw okay participation in that right now, but instead of just saying like, oh, like, do you like this or not like this? We asked one layer deeper. And this was my goal for this was what would hinder somebody from not using this perk?
Yeah.
Like, is it they just don't like the perk, or is it what we found out? And so what we found out, because we are global, again, like 18 countries, there are taxes and duties that cost more than what the product is.
Oh, well, that will do it. Yeah.
Right. And so, and that is tough. And from a compliance standpoint, I don't think compliance and I guess education standpoint, I don't think we'd informed employees of how much like we have no control over our taxes and various things that happen. So like, we're like, sorry, we can't handle that part, but can we potentially find other merchants in countries that are like located in your location? Potentially so. The other thing that we got from feedback was employees were, so since it's just $100 a month, like that's an okay amount for a stipend, but with kind of the Black Friday, Cyber Monday deals that are coming up, and people maybe want to get some more holiday shopping done ahead of time, there was some feedback of, hey, would it be possible to combine some of the months? And so we did. Like that was one thing we're like, yep, we hear you. We can do this. Like, let's do it. And so far, so good. Like we have some great participation rates that are coming in on that. I would consider that the survey feedback to action ratio and then like having the participation go up being a success. But talk to me in January too, and I'll let you know how it goes then.
I think those are really good examples of not assuming why something is working or not working as well, and really understanding kind of how to make something better or work better for employees, really meeting them where they are physically and emotionally too. And I think benefits are a great way to kind of dig in and do that. I know I asked kind of specific questions around feedback and company culture and kind of your journey here, but I think it's interesting to ask people, you know, what is top of mind or the next problem or situation you're currently trying to solve right now, Jen?
Yeah. So I am in the thick actually of a total rewards and like compensation overhaul. So okay. I am putting the last kind of what is it called? Like dotting the I's and crossing the T's on the compensation philosophy, which I'm super excited about. From an equity standpoint, we are trying to really have that progress towards equity from a global scale. So really paying people the same amount of money for the same amount of work, no matter where they are within their location, which is super exciting, but definitely takes a lot of logistics to work out. And in addition to that, it takes balancing kind of what other perks and kind of benefits we want to offer for that. So that is my project right now, my baby. And then the next thing I'm going to start working on actually is on the recognition piece and more of the performance development piece that's coming. We've already have a lot of teams that have career ladders established, which is super awesome from a framework of feedback and just kind of getting performance reviews out there. But it definitely, we have like layers to go on that to make it better. And again, all with the goal of having this sense of belonging in mind, where people feel like they're getting the feedback they need. They're feeling positively reinforced for kind of the positive behaviors that they are doing. It all comes back to that.
Absolutely. And I think a lot of people are looking at total inclusive rewards and programs, compensation being a huge piece of that as well. And definitely takes a lot of time and energy to do. And when we're talking about these strategies, of course, I want to kind of ask in terms of your experience. So not necessarily at Smile, but people are bound to make mistakes, even with the best intentions, which is okay. That's when you learn. But what are some common mistakes you're seeing companies make in their people strategy today?
Yeah, I alluded to this actually in something I might have said earlier, but from a transparency and communication perspective, there are definitely, balances here from a transparency perspective. Maybe you don't want to there's some companies out there that are like, plastering all of their employees like name, title, salary on their website. Maybe you don't want to go that bold, but there is definitely something to be said for just telling employees, hey, here's our thought process behind compensation. Here's how we got the data for the compensation. Here's how we're going to apply it. And I think the level of transparency, again, whatever your company culture is, and this would be, something that would be different in every company. That would be something that I think has been a misstep at a lot of places. And then that also kind of ties into the communication side, where assumptions are made that maybe people all know how compensation works, or like all know like how much total rewards they already have, where they really don't sometimes. Being able to actually highlight, hey, here's all the things that we have to offer you, and like keeping them top of mind for people takes work, and it has I don't think it's ever gotten right exactly. So
yeah, absolutely. Being transparent and making sure you are listening, but also communicating back what you heard, is also part of that process as well. So I definitely agree with you there as well. Is there, I guess, another way of asking too, is a must-have that people leaders need to incorporate in their strategy, knowing what we've learned over the past 2 years and thinking about, what it takes to be successful in the future?
Yeah. I can't actually take credit for this idea. I was actually on a webinar earlier where the panelist, Cassandra, actually mentioned this, but she was talking about a holistic look at the entire employee life cycle. Okay. And specific moments in time where the support of the employee would be different in that particular moment. Mm-hmm. And that just thought process and strategy resonated so heavily with me, because I think that sometimes we tend to look at employees as like this one homogenous, like you're just an employee, where really we should be looking at employees at the individual level, and like, how are we supporting this individual employee, and what are their needs? And that, I think that's something that we could do more of.
I agree with you as well. I was just talking to someone earlier about that as well, in terms of, when someone is first hired and onboarding to their first performance review, everything in between that to when they have an onboarding buddy, and like stay interviews are something that a lot of people are talking about as well, that are becoming an integral part of the process. So yeah, understanding that people are at different points of the journey and each of them need to be fostered like really intentionally as well. Jen, is there anything that I didn't ask that you want to share, or maybe a key takeaway or two that you want to underscore for folks who are listening to our conversation today?
Yeah, I feel like this is a saying that I have heard in many different ways, but it sticks with me. when you're thinking about building culture and a great culture, that can take a long time and a lot of effort to build, but basically seconds to crash and burn. So I've experienced it firsthand, and really not exactly a crash and burn, but a like nosedive. And so it's really important though, like that you are keeping a constant pulse on employees. You can't just wait till that annual survey that comes out. I like hate annual surveys, by the way. Like I want to do them like monthly, if possible, quarterly, if people push back. But I think that's really important as well. Like you can't just sit on your hands on culture. Like you really have to foster it, and you have to work at it.
Absolutely. You have to foster it. It doesn't just happen magically because you will it to. It's very strategic, and it's sustainable too. So change doesn't happen overnight, especially impactful change. So really thinking about things involving people as well. It's not just one person or even a team. It's everybody, and really resourcing to do that. Jen, thank you so much for being on Reimagining Company Culture this afternoon.
Yeah, my pleasure. Thank you so much for having me.
Of course. And as a reminder for folks who are listening at AllVoices, we really believe in the empowerment of everyone to give that employee feedback for the company to succeed on a whole. Have a good rest of your afternoon, everyone.